No, okay.
It says it's streaming now.
Okay. I'll just give it 30 seconds. Okay, yes, we are live on Facebook.
Hello.
Okay, hello. Okay.
Howdy.
I am, I'm talking live to Portia Powell, and I had this idea. I had it a few weeks ago, actually, but it's taken me a little bit to get my shit together to talk to lots of different people, but just ordinary real life people about the vaccine. Let's call it the vaccine, even though it's not a vaccine. We all know that someone's going to go, it's not a vaccine, stop calling it a vaccine. But just so we all know what we're talking about. I mean, we call it like the jab, but I noticed that all of the government bodies as well are calling it the jab. So I sort of want to call it something different to what they're saying. My plan is to talk to people really regularly. I'm going to post this or share this on other platforms as well, but for now Facebook's very easy for me and I already have an audience here. If you're watching, we are talking to someone who's had the jab. But so Portia, I met Portia, and we've got some shared networks anyway, but I met Portia properly a few weeks ago when she responded to something that I had posted on Facebook, and we had some conversations over Facebook Messenger because she did have her first dose of Astra Zeneca and then changed her mind and realized that she had in fact been coerced into it. So this is an opportunity for Portia to share her story and hopefully a couple of things. People who are like hardcore non-vaxxers or anti-vaxxers will understand why people have made the choice to have it even when they haven't really wanted to, and will understand why it's important to welcome people like Portia into our communities of non-vaxxers. And for people who are in that like place of in between of maybe they're not sure what to do, they're thinking about whether to get it or whether not to get it, to consider how manipulative programming has played a part in people's decisions to have the jab. So, Portia, hello. Thank you so much for being my first guest in this.
Okay, thank you for having me. It's a bit daunting. Yeah,
I know. I'm so glad that you said yes. Thank you. I really, really appreciate it. So my audience are going to be very kind. Don't worry. I have every confidence.
I can't see any comments, but I've left my phone downstairs.
Right, we're not even looking at comments. We're not checking.
I can't see anything. It's just me and you.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Can you please, Portia, introduce us? Tell us about your circumstances, who you are, where you live, all of that stuff, just so people get an idea of the kind of person that you are.
Okay, so I'm a mother of 4. I'm a grandma. I'm originally from England, but my kids were born and some of them brought up in Italy. So they've done school there, they've done school here, we're homeschooled, we wanted to world school, and then obviously along came this whole thing and put a stop to that. Before, I was working as a supply teacher for special needs children in schools. And then during lockdown, I started my own business as a language coach. And that's where I am now. But at the beginning of the pandemic, I will be honest, I was a bit scared. Not a lot, a bit. When did it happen?
So say February, March 2020.
Yeah.
We start, I mean, we were hearing about it from probably January here, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And then by late February, late February, early March, it was very clear that there was some like level of alarm going on. So do you remember those early
I do,
days?
and I was alarmed only because my daughter, she was in Tenerife, and I managed to get her back just before they went into lockdown. And at the time she was only 13. So we had to literally get her to travel back on her own with the host, with the steward or whatever, and get her back. And I bought masks and I bought disinfectant, and we stayed in. The kids were allowed out. You know, I let them go and play out for a little bit. I did the shopping. I mean, I wasn't like in. But I remember thinking, Sarah, something not right. I've got this feeling that Wuhan, you know, they've got like laboratories there, you know, virus laboratories. I must be going mad, you know. I must be one of the conspiracy theorists and whatnot. Yeah. And then as things started to go on month by month, I started to get a little bit more relaxed about it. I was on anti-anxiety tablets before, and I quit them during the lockdown. I quit them because I thought, well, you know, all those queues in front of the chemists, and it's a world pandemic and can't really get much worse than this. If I'm going to get anxiety, those little pills aren't going to solve it. So I quit that. And I was doing really well in Spain. In August, me and the kids jumped on a plane with a mask on and went to Spain. And it was lovely being able to travel in the airports. We had to quarantine when we got back. But I mean, we weren't doing anything else really, so it didn't bother me. Christmas came and then another lockdown, and we were like, oh, well, we're not doing it this time. Let's just forget it this time. We're not doing the lockdown. Something's not convincing me. And then along came the vaccine. And I've been umming and ahhing. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, I have to admit. I've been vaccinated when I was little. My kids, they were just vaccinated. The reason I did it is solely because I didn't look into it. I didn't think, well, in Italy, you didn't have an option because you have to give the card before they go to nursery school. You have to prove your vaccine. So I knew that it wasn't an option. I'm fine. I have heard that some vaccines have caused autism, but I've not looked into it simply because it had not affected me in any way. We've never had the flu vaccine. I know that's not mandatory, and they give it out at schools as a spray up the child's nose, and I've never consented to that. I've always said, no, you're healthy, even if you get the flu. I've had the flu once, it knocks you about, but you'll be fine. And then they started talking about the vaccine, and I'm like, you know, I'm fit and healthy. I think I'll be like the flu one and just opt out of that one. And that was me done. You know, I'd made my decision, and that was it. Okay, so my children, 14 and 13, have got little jobs. You know, they go around to this lady's house and clean the car, do the gardening. She was a friend of my late mother's, not a friend of mine personally. Lovely lady, really nice lady. Her daughter is in the education system, quite high up. And she said, you know, you really need to get your vaccine because I'm old and I think I should have vaccinated people around me. And I'm like, well, you know, I'm a bit not sure about it. I'm looking into it. And she was like, oh, what, are you a scientist now? No, but I'm trying to, you know, all those words. I was Googling it. And I found one ingredient that I didn't like. which was, I don't even remember, Sarah, but it sounded like, how can I say, fossil fuel. There was a component in there, and I don't know but it scared me anyway. Oh no, you must have this vaccine. She even convinced the children to convince me. So my children were coming back saying, oh, Mum, you really need this vaccine. You know, we want you to stay safe. And I was like, oh, I remember sat in my living room. It was a beautiful evening. I've got a lovely view over the sea. And I said, I want a sign. I booked an appointment. It was there. I needed to go. I want a sign. No sign came. And I went down to the vaccine clinic, and absolutely empty, nobody there. They'd run out of vaccines. I'd have to go back another day and be booked. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the sign. I was like, yee! I was really happy. They were all, oh, we're really sorry. I'm like, oh no, don't worry, I was asking for a sign anyway. Oh, you anti-vax? No, I'm not anti-vax. I had all my vaccine, I just didn't want this one. And I told this friend, you know, oh, there's a sign, I'm not having it. That was it. No, you must have it, you must have it, you must have it. So I did, because she said, if you don't have it, the children will not be allowed to work here. You won't be able to travel. It's going to be a right nightmare for you. You really should do it. And the kids were like, Mom, but you know, she pays our pocket money. We like working for her. You know, what other things are we not going to be able to do? We've got family in Italy, like yourself, Sarah. They've got family abroad. We're not going to be able to see them ever again. You might die, and this, that, and the other. Okay, so I went there and stood in the queue. Everybody had their masks on in the queue outside. I didn't wear a mask during the whole part. I did right at the beginning. I'll show you. Even in the schools, I work in schools, and you're supposed to wear a mask in there, but I mean, it was winter, so I was like this, you know. And then they wanted to check my temperature here, and I've never had that done. I always asked for here, because it's that gun pointing that I didn't like, and I said, can I have it here? And they said, no, we need to take it there. And I said, no, I'd like you to take it here. And I got all wound up anyway. I walked in, had the vaccine, felt fine, and went home. They gave me a leaflet. I think I read it in the queue, but didn't read it, because I know for a fact, already knew that if anything does happen to me, they're not liable anyway. I knew that. I didn't know it was experimental, I must admit. I don't think that was actually said to me, you know, this has not been fully approved until 2023, isn't it? And it's only for emergency measure. I didn't know all of that. The day after, I felt very, very ill. Like I said, I had had the flu once. I was about 19. I'm 47. I've not been ill since. Touch wood. And I felt like I'd had the flu, but I was at work, and I was in the staff room, and I was like this. And I literally felt awful. I'd lost the car. I'd parked the car, and I couldn't even remember where I'd parked the car. That's how ill I felt. Some other members of the team at the school I was working at, are you okay? Oh yeah, I had the vaccine. Oh, and you hear, oh, we were ill, and oh no, I was fine. And I've had my second, I was worse than that, and I'm thinking, I'm not going through this again. I'm not a fan of being ill at all. And I decided that's it. I've had my first one. I've had the one. Everybody should be happy now. That's it. And I let my friend know. I said, okay, I'm happy. There's proof. Oh no, you've got to have your second one. I said, no, not on the second one. I've had my first one now. shut up, stop going on about, made everybody happy. Oh no, you've got to be second, otherwise they can't work. And that at that point, I'm like, bye then. Now for me, Sarah, it's not, I'm not a scientist. I don't understand what goes into it. I've only voted once. And I remember I was listening to that politician and thinking, oh yeah. And then I was listening to another politician, I'm thinking, oh yeah. And I'm thinking, well, he makes sense and she makes sense from two opposite places. I just have to make my mind up. And I did. I only voted once in my life. I won't do it again. They got me to vote in pencil. In England, you have to vote in pencil. I mean, surely that can be rubbed out. If anybody can answer that question, why we have to vote in pencil, I'd love to know that. I've asked a few people at the schools and they don't know why. Anyway, so I've listened to the people at the school, propaganda at the schools, what they tell the kids. And I've listened to the BBC. I haven't had a TV now for 3 months because that went. I didn't want to listen to that. And I've listened to family members and I've listened to friends and I've listened to the anti-vaxxers and I've listened to people who have just had it because they want to go away. They want all this bullshit to stop. It's not for any other reason. They're just, okay, let's just have the vaccine and now just shut up about it. Let's just get on with it. You know, people who don't wear a mask, who don't ping in there, they've just had the vaccine just to get on with life. I lost track of what I was going to say. So listening to one side and another side, and you have to make a decision now, then I'm deciding not to have a second or a booster or at this point any other vaccine, because now I'm getting the thought of who knows what they might sneak into it. And it's not what's in the vaccine. Like I say, I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to understand all that talk. Like the politics when they talk, you know, you don't really understand it. I'm going on my gut feeling, and my gut feeling is if you're going to force me into something, I'm not going to do it. You've got to give me a good reason, a bloody good reason, and explain it if you want me to do something. You want me to wear a seatbelt in a car? You know, I get that. I've seen that it can say, if you tilted your head, it's not going to, because the airbag and everything else and all the dynamics. The fact is, though, that I don't know if they're telling the truth, because politicians lie all the time. The other side, why would they lie? What benefit do those, I don't know how many million people are in protesting in London when we met up that day, Sarah? What do they have to get out of it, of their truth? They don't have anything to get out of it. Whereas the politician, it's not even the politicians in it, because then since looking at the vaccine, there's all the other rabbit holes that one tends to fall down. And it's a no-brainer for me. I'm not going to be forced into it. I'm not. You can't sing at a funeral, for God's sake. There's a little old lady who I know, her husband died. They met in a choir, and he died not of COVID. Who knows if he died of the vaccine? Thinking about it, because he had both of them. Not being allowed to sing at a funeral. But then a few days after, it was the football event. And things like that just don't make sense. And if that doesn't make sense, something so obvious that even this little old lady just doesn't make sense anymore, then I don't believe that the vaccine makes sense. And that's why I'm not taking it. But I don't blame the lady who tried to coerce me, because I genuinely think she's frightened, Sarah. And I genuinely think she's been convinced by maybe other family members who were even more afraid of her. And I should be going back to work in schools in September. Who knows there if I'll be coerced into having the injection? I don't know.
So I've got a couple of questions, right?
Thought you might.
Well, one thing that comes up really strongly when you were talking, and it's a strong theme in my life anyway, so maybe that's why it came up, is around this idea of having our, I'm sorry about that incessant beeping. I've got Telegram on and it's beep, 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 but I can't work out how to switch it off on my computer. So I apologize. It's probably just going to keep going. Many a war was won on Telegram. Did you know that?
I've heard, yeah.
This might be the first one. The idea that our intuition, our gut feeling, what we these little alarm bells that we all have for good reason, right? Because it's human. Well, and animals, all animals have it. This instinct to use fear to assess risk and then make a decision. And it seems like you had this inbuilt mechanism to assess truth from untruth, and that you smelt that all the way along, but things kept on kind of telling you that you shouldn't trust your intuition, that you should trust something else instead, whether it was the television, the politicians, the lady who really wanted you to get the vaccine, your friend. I'm assuming as well, being in schools, that you've had various messaging happening in schools, which I'm also really curious about, by the way. And even though you had a feeling from the very beginning, really, that something wasn't right, you ignored these little niggles. And that, I'm really curious about that, because I'm seeing evidence from all over, I've seen it for many years actually, that we are encouraged to ignore our intuition all the time. And I mean, it happens constantly at the moment, that you express an opinion, ask a question, have a thought, and people want you to constantly back up your ideas, questions, decisions, beliefs with science and evidence. And that for some reason, it's no longer enough to just say, no, I don't want to do that. Like, we've been told that just saying no isn't enough of a reason, that we've got to back that up with like peer-reviewed research. And that really like came across when you were talking about the fact that you felt like this wasn't right the whole way through, and yet you were led to think that your intuition, your instinct to not have the vaccine, wasn't good enough. You shouldn't trust it. You should trust something else instead.
Trust the science.
Yeah. Which,
I
as
think,
you say, we supposedly can't understand. I mean, I've read lots of science and I can understand it quite well. But what I also notice is that certain people that hold the key to knowledge and information supposedly try to trick us into thinking that we couldn't possibly understand it, and so we need to outsource that to somebody else who's like the expert, and so we ignore our own instinct to avoid danger. Really, like your instinct was saying like meh, 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 like avoid danger, and yet you sort of got talked out of trusting it.
I saw a lot of people that were so eager to go and get their vaccine. They were lining up, queuing and putting their little sticker up, and I felt a lot of dread stood in that queue, to be honest. It wasn't a hot day, but I was feeling quite warm and sticky. I remember thinking, thank goodness they've given me this leaflet, because I was fanning myself with it. I was getting a bit hot under the collar, and I knew it was for this vaccine. They call it vaccine. And it didn't feel comfortable, and it didn't feel right. And the nurses said, oh, are you afraid of a needle? I'm like, no. You know, I've had 4 kids, no epidural. I'm not afraid of, I mean, I did once have an epidural, but it was a cesarean, you know. I've had all sorts. I'm not scared of a needle. Something didn't sit right. And it's the manipulation in schools. I mean, I'm not at one particular school, so I don't get any memos. I'm a supply. I go from one school to another. Maybe I'm at a school for a month. But I, as a supply, I don't get the memos and the letters. But I'm in the staff room and I hear what the teachers say to the kids. I hear that if you don't, when it was mandatory, if you don't wear your mask, you'll be in isolation.
What does that mean? I mean, I've heard some stories too.
What do you think?
I mean, I'm assuming the child gets separated from everybody else. Yeah.
They're in a room, and you know, when you're in a post office and you're in a little booth area, maybe filling out something, you're in little booths like this, and you have to face the front. And if you turn around, then you get told to face the front. And you have to write down what you've done wrong. So I presume they were writing things like, I must wear a mask to protect. I don't know, but teachers saying, oh, thank goodness these vaccines are coming out for the children. Then everything will go back to normal. And really pushing the children, pushing them, encouraging them to take the vaccine, rather than to question whether they're doing the right thing or not. And what I found as well, talking about politics, which I've no clue about, when you watch telly, you get one political party and then you get the other political party, don't you? Having a chat and they debate things. Why are we not having that? I mean, I don't see TV, but I'm presuming we're not having that on the BBC now.
I mean, there's only any point in having that debate if they don't agree and they oppose each other. But they, in fact, do agree on this. I mean, the only difference from what I can see is that the Labor Party would have gone for harder sanctions and restrictions.
But I mean, even on chat shows on the TV, do they not get people in who
have a different opinion?
View?
That's a good question. I mean, this is what we're all asking. Why has there not been allowed to be open conversation? Why are conversations like this relegated to basically social media platforms? No mainstream media channels are covering anything that's not the official line of thought. Yeah.
No. I was speaking to a cousin of mine who works in medicine, and her opinion is we should listen to the science. We should listen to the people who really know what they're talking about, not the people who have been discredited. That person's been discredited. But what about this? Well, that person's been discredited too. But don't you then want to know why these people are keep being discredited? You know, I mean, I'm not a politician or a scientist, but I'm not dumb. You know,
Yeah.
You're not dumb. You work in the medical environment. You know, you can't be. I don't know.
I mean, as you said before, I've been researching vaccines for quite a few years, and everyone in the medical fraternity who speaks against the official narrative around vaccines as it relates to public health gets discredited. So there's no incentive for people to speak out at all, except that they feel strongly that it's the right thing to do. And so, you said this at the beginning. We always say in the anti-vax world, follow the money. And that's a no-brainer, right? You watch where the money's going. It's going to the pharmaceutical companies. It's going to government. It's going to big business. It's not going to the person who has been in the vaccine industry for 30 or 40 years, who's worked for pharmaceutical companies, who knows the science and can explain it very well, and who speaks out against former employers. That person's not getting the money. That person's getting ridiculed and shame, and they actually risk their lives to speak out. So why are we not listening to them? Why are governments not listening to anyone that isn't just a sycophant? And that in itself, when I first started researching vaccines when I was pregnant with my third child, that was enough to for the alarm bells to ring, to say there's something here. There's something here. There is no, why would you risk your life, your livelihood, your family, your career? Why would you risk those things when you could just stay quiet and or continue in that industry?
It doesn't make sense, does it?
It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. What's scaring me though is, so I'm not confrontational. I don't like being confronted. I get quite scared if I'm put into that situation. It's like the fight or flight thing kicks in. So if it does become more serious, I've seen your posts about what's going on in Australia. I mean, what do you do? What do I do? So do we all like get fake passports, get fake cards, and just play along with them? Or do I stand my ground and say, no, I have the right to be free and to decide? I'm not sure, Rebecca. I've not got that far. I'm not as outspoken as you are. I'm not as well researched as you are. I'm just going on my gut feeling. I've got a gut feeling.
There's a lot to be said for your gut. There's a lot to be said for your gut feeling, though. And actually, I don't do very much research now. I did enough research years ago. And it really wasn't for me. It was actually because my husband was a bit like, oh, I'm not sure about not vaccinating. I kind of feel like I want some more information. So I'm like, okay, I'll get you some more information. When COVID stuff was first mentioned last year, like December, January, I knew there was going to be a vaccine, and I knew we wouldn't be having it, and I could foresee it because of all the research I'd already done. So I didn't feel the need necessarily to go down all of the rabbit holes that other people had been down, because I could foresee how this would play out. Not quite, I mean, gosh, who would have foreseen this? I didn't foresee quite this. Anyway, yeah, there is a lot to be said for your instinct. And really, it's, to me, this is, I mean, I'm not a black and white person. Oh, this is a black and white issue in terms of we get to choose what we do to our bodies and what we put in our bodies. So you don't need, this is a lie, that we need to defend ourselves with science, because actually all we need to do is say no. So the confrontation, you know, that you're imagining in terms of someone challenging you and then you needing to come up with an answer that will satisfy them, we don't need to. We actually just need to say no. And I really want you to know, and other people to know, that there are millions and millions of us around the world saying no. And there is strength in numbers and strength in unity. And that is happening. That is happening. All these networks are spreading all around the world. And we are many. We are far more than what mainstream media will say, because actually they're scared of us, I think, because we will derail the whole agenda to vaccinate the world, because there's a lot of us. So, you know, I guess what I want to say is, don't feel like you have to be prepared with like a defense, like why you don't want the vaccine or why you make the choices that you make. We don't actually have to. We actually just have to say no. We're not doing it. And the idea that you have to be knowledgeable on the science it's a lie to trick us into trying to engage in these conversations. I'm not a scientist, and like you, I know instinctively that this is not going in my body, and I don't need to know any science around it. I mean, whether you then choose to go and do some research, but if you feel you need to back up your decision, that's well, fine and well, but you don't have to. In terms of where this is going to go, you know, I mean, I don't know whether are you thinking, what's my tipping point? Am I going to ultimately be manipulated into having the jab? And I mean, no one can answer that for you, but I do want you to know that the more determined we stand in our sovereignty and dominion over our own bodies, which we have, and the more we connect with other people around the world, the more other people will find us and have the confidence to say no, just like you ultimately did. Like you came to the decision that, no, I'm not doing anymore. So something gave you the confidence to go, no, I'm not doing anymore.
For me, I honestly think it was to do with you have to. It's expected of you. It's just what you have to do now. And if you don't do it, you don't get to do this, that, and the other. That's what triggered me, Sarah. I have to admit, I smoke and I eat healthy, but I mean, we'll do a McDonald's. You know, I'm not 100%. You know, what I put in my body is sacred. I wish I was.
Me either, don't worry.
But you know, the beer will go down quite sweetly, and so will the chocolate. I drink a load of coffee. It's not about what you're putting in my body, because like I said, not a scientist. You've given me other vaccines, I ain't got a clue what was in them. You put me on medication, I haven't got a clue what that is. I'll just take your word for it. You're the doctor, you know what I mean? But if you say to me, you've got to take these tablets or else what? Why is it? Or else what? Why? You know? And now the children.
So the clue was in the coercion. For you, the clue was in the coercion. Yeah, I mean, I urge
what
you
had it done if they hadn't have coerced me into it? You know, I mean, that's the ironic thing.
I mean, if you haven't already started thinking about the other pharmaceuticals that you might be putting in your body, I urge you to, because it's the whole stinking industry is an absolute like cesspool of evil. So like, if you feel inclined to research the other stuff too. I mean, there is some good in modern medicine, but nowhere near as much as what we've been sold. And often, ironically, the very company that will make a drug that creates a particular side effect will also make the drug that treats the side effect. Like Pfizer, for example. Pfizer make a blood clot, anti-blood clot medication. And that sort of conflict, I mean, that seems like a conflict to me. That sort of conflict is rife in the pharmaceutical industry. There's a pharmaceutical company that makes childhood vaccines, including the MMR. They also make a branded paracetamol, which is what GPs recommend parents give their children. Give your children paracetamol before you bring them in for their vaccine, and then give it to them 4 hours after. It's the same company that make the paracetamol and make the, you know, and I don't know that the GP that's administering the vaccine necessarily knows this stuff. There's a part of me that still wants to think that there is some good in the medical fraternity, really small part of me. But you know, that is not uncommon. That's what these are the conflicts that are that run the pharmaceutical industry.
Another little thing I wanted to say is years and years and years ago, I remember watching a film about Germany and what happened there. And the beginning of this scene was these soldiers going into German houses and getting people in wheelchairs and just pushing them over the balcony. And this is awful, Sarah, and it made my skin crawl. A few weeks ago, I saw that the government here in England are suggesting that 16-year-olds get vaccinated. 16, I think it's over 16-year-olds. And the first ones that will be vaccinated are Down syndrome and learning disabilities.
Vulnerable children, yeah.
And as soon as even thinking about it now, I don't see it like, oh, see, they're trying to help the vulnerable first. I'm thinking, no, the kids have never had it, and you're giving it to these kids first. I mean, they're not going to be able to speak up for themselves. I work with these kids. You shouldn't be doing that. That's just unethical. But if you look on the government website, still now in England, up until a few days ago, it was saying it is for emergency use until 2023 for adults of 18 or over. So again, they're saying one thing on the government website, but then on the radios, there's obviously common news. I heard that the government want to start with vaccinating these young people, and I've told my kids, literally told them. I usually give them choices. I'm pretty good with choices. I've told them, just leg it, you know. If they come after you, just leg it, you know. Because 2 of them do go to school still.
And make sure they hide a phone on their person.
I mean, they don't. No, they just need to leg it. They just need to run. They're very fast runners. The teachers wouldn't be able to catch them. They're very nimble. A lot faster than the teachers.
I mean, who would have thought that this is the advice that we're giving children? Run away from school.
One more thing. At the beginning of the pandemic, oh my goodness, I had a letter, and it was the College of Nurses, and it was the government, and Ipis Morris. Ipis Morris, it had on it. And I'm like, they wanted my children to be part of an experimental thing for COVID. I think a lot of families got them. But if you look at Ipis Morris and what it means in Latin, it means they die. So you're...
Have you still got a copy of this letter?
I think I screenshot it. I'll send it to you.
Wow. I have not. Yeah. Okay.
So it's like blatantly written in Latin, they die. And then you're asking me if I'd like my kids to take part in the experiment? I think not.
Mm. Was this the vaccine trial? Is that what
I
the
don't know if it was vaccine or if it was to do with being tested. I didn't even read the whole letter. I was like, oh, no, 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 no. Burn it, away with you, cast it out. And then I got another one for the other kid. For another, yeah.
Hmm. I think anyone watching this really wants to see the letter. So you still got
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was the
yeah.
of nurses and something else, and then ipis moris, something like that in Latin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's that mean? So I'll find it out for you.
Wow. Thank you. That was amazing. I remember I talked to you, like there was the day before Freedom Day, as we call it, we had a conversation on the phone, and you decided to go to your first ever protest. So you went from like having the vaccine, but kind of under duress, to going to a demonstration in London within like a really short amount of time. And I've noticed on social media you've been quite outspoken, actually. What is what was the sort of the impetus for you to you know, start to use your voice in that way?
I've never done anything like that. I've never needed to. I've never felt that basic things were being taken away from me, Sarah. I've never had that. I don't associate myself with the LGBT. I don't associate myself with any strikes. So I've not had that that burning desire to have something that I don't have. And when I found out that there was a new bill being passed that would prevent people from protesting, that's when I thought, oh no. It seems weird, isn't it? You're protesting so that you can protest. But I've never protested before, but that's beside the point. I want to be able I probably will never protest. I might not even go again. I don't know. I want my children to be able to have a say if they think that they're treated unfairly. I want them to be able to protest. I mean, that's just how I've been brought up. We've not been brought up in countries where you can't protest. And that scared me. That really, really scared me.
What do you feel about, I mean, you sort of just answered the question, but just to be really explicit, about not being able to hold governments accountable? So governments start to kind of go renegade, right, which is happening, although they're clearly corroborating and collaborating. Governments starting to act in a way that is clearly not in the interests of the people. The idea, what do you think about the idea that we would have all mechanisms to hold them accountable removed from us? Because that's really what we're talking about.
Like I said, I've not studied politics. I don't know how other I don't know what's the expression, war criminals, how they were, how other situations have been, but definitely, of course, they need to be accountable. Of course they do. Nobody is exempt. You know, not even the Queen is exempt,
Yeah.
is she? Is she?
Mhm.
I wouldn't have thought so.
Well,
I
I
mean,
mean, she should have sworn an oath to the people.
yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
a big question that's being presented at the moment. Yeah.
I've not ever been into politics. I've never understood politics, and I don't understand how they work. I don't understand the mechanisms at all. And I don't see how, if we get rid of Boris Johnson and all his cronies, how another group of cronies can do any better. I can't, you know, you're going to swap one for another. I don't think that's going to make any sense whatsoever. Because that's just what politicians do, isn't it?
Well, as you said at the very beginning, people are used to politicians lying.
Yeah, it's just what they do, isn't it? So
what they do. So why are we in general not more skeptical about this situation?
yeah, and why do we vote in pencil? If anybody can answer that.
So just to wrap up, because we've been talking for nearly an hour, you're not having your second dose.
No.
Subsequent boosters, right? Everyone watching this, you know that there's going to be boosters, and on it will go, right? So don't think that
older population have already been called for their boosters, apparently.
Yeah. So anyone watching this who's on the fence or thinks, oh, I'll just have my 2 and then I'm done. No. So the way I think it will go, I imagine, is that if you have your 2 and then you choose not to have your boosters because you have a reaction, you won't be classed as fully vaccinated.
And if I'd have had both Pfizer, no, what did I have?
Astra Zeneca.
If I'd have had both of those, I think it's that one, then for travel, I don't think they're accepting that in Europe anyway. So you're going to have to go and have another 2.
Of another make,
another brand. Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you say? Last bit of wisdom to anyone who's watching this, is thinking about whether to get it. And maybe they've got a little voice in their head, their little voice, their instinct telling them something. What would you say to them?
Yeah, give your little voice a listen to. Definitely. I can't tell people whether to do it or not to do it. You're going to have to feel comfortable in yourself with what you've done and make an informed choice. Don't do it because somebody's told you to do it. I mean, come on, don't be as silly as I was, please. Make an informed choice and listen to the gut feeling.
Yeah. And I would say maybe go slightly beyond what you get from the BBC or the NHS website.
Informed choice means turning off the TV.
Turn off
the
TV.
Turn off the TV. Turn off Facebook, because you don't get a lot of information, you know, really. You can't rely on somebody's aunt's, uncle's, friend's Facebook post if you want to make an informed decision. Not even informed as what's in the vaccine. Informed as in the bigger picture, I think. Take your time. Just listen and think about it. Don't just do it.
Yeah, there's no need to rush the decision either.
No. I could have said, no, I'm going to think about it a bit more, but I didn't.
Thank you so much. You've been so brave agreeing to chat with me. And I'm so glad that I met you only a couple of months ago.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, definitely. I think probably you may have influenced the decision in some way. I think it was, I can't say you specifically because it was all a bit of a blur, wasn't it? Lockdown, but you're definitely one of the most outspoken people I've got on my Facebook feed, so it probably was you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
We're all doing our bit in different ways, and I've got a voice and I'm going to keep using it.
Good on you, girl. Good on you.
People may be glad to know or dismayed to know.
If they don't want to listen, they can turn you off. I mean, that's
absolutely. I welcome it.
When I hear the BBC, I turned it off. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Portia. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for watching. I'm gonna switch off now and go and see who's commented and see if we got any interaction, Portia.
All right, then you go do that. I won't see Facebook. I've cancelled it off my phone today, so I'll go and have a look later.
Good on you. Good on you. I'll talk to you very soon.
All right then. Bye, sweetheart. Bye.